Hi everybody, my name is Jim Fuller and I am the blog owner of Sponge OT, and this is the first of our Sponge Chats. For those of you that don't know the blog, basically I write about things that I do with teacher training, and lesson ideas I have, teacher training thoughts and reflections. So if you haven't checked it out, feel free to check out the blog. I'll leave a link below. But let's get back to Sponge Chats. So Sponge Chats, what are we doing here? Well, I got the idea for Sponge Chats basically because I get a lot of emails from teachers, perhaps like yourself, about how I got into teacher training, and the objective of these chats is to answer these questions. I wanted to get many different perspectives on this question for a range of different positions within academic management within EOT. So over the next few months, and hopefully this continues, I'm going to be speaking with trainers, with managers, with material developers, and with hopefully enough information being pushed out to you guys that it can, one, either encourage you to take that next step to move into teacher training or any other position, or it can answer some of those questions that you've had in the back of your mind for a while. I suppose on a secondary note, I'd also like to hope, anyway, that these videos, as they encourage more people to move into perhaps these other positions, maybe we can also increase the professionalism within our industry in certain areas. But without further ado, let's get on to the first one. The other day I had the pleasure to speak with Borja Uruñuela, a teacher, trainer, author, manager from St. James in Seville. I've seen Borja present, I don't know how many times. So I've had both the pleasure of speaking with him for Sponge Chats and also being, being in one of his presentations and workshops. He is a wealth of knowledge, and it was an absolute pleasure to speak with him. Hopefully you get something out of this video. If you do, please give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, okay? And if you have any comments, questions, queries, or doubts, feel free to leave them in the comment box, and I will try to get back to you all as soon as possible. Okay, bye. Good morning, Borja.
Hi, good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's been a while since we've last seen each other.
I know. Yes. How are you doing?
Good. I suppose we've survived so far through the pandemic, which is good. On a personal note, I've had coronavirus twice.
Oh my God.
But luckily, nothing too serious. I mean, I was sick for a few days, but nothing permanent, which is good. And how about yourself?
Fine. Well, I don't think I've had it yet. I had a test done in September, like all the teachers, we had a test just to make sure that we were okay to start teaching. And fine. I mean, obviously this year has been a challenge in terms of everything. Students,
to say the
teachers.
least.
Yeah. I don't want to get into details. Let's put it like that. It's been a challenge.
Yeah.
But when I had a meeting with the teachers in September, I said, our aim is to get through the year.
Yeah.
And I had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, we are getting through the year.
Brilliant. Excellent.
So that's our aim. Obviously, it's not a year to accomplish huge things. It doesn't like just get through the year and manage the lessons the best we can. We're doing hybrid, which is it has been a challenge for teachers.
Yeah.
And for the students, I guess. But so far so good.
Yep.
So hopefully next year will be a little bit easier. I don't think it's gonna be back to normal at all, but it should be easier. At least we've done, the learning experience has been huge, and that will help. but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
No, definitely. Here we're doing a mixture of online and sort of in-person classes. We, at least in the place where I work, we've opted to stay away from hybrid just because of the unique challenges that hybrid classes present. But like you said, this year very challenging. But we're counting ourselves lucky to be here at the end of the year, still with good student numbers moving through, and everyone's safe and sound at the moment, which is really, really positive for us.
Yeah, where are you? Are you in Zaragoza, did you say?
Yeah, Zaragoza now. So I moved from sunny Almeria to very very cold Zaragoza. Well, in the summer it's the opposite. It's extremely hot here. I imagine it's similar temperatures to Seville.
Hot and dry, I believe, right?
Yeah. You're still in Seville, correct, at the moment? Yeah. So I miss the beach, but I do like Zaragoza. It's a beautiful city, and I mean, I can't complain. I'm working, and I'm here with my girlfriend now, so yeah, no problems at all.
Are you teaching in a language school?
Yeah, teaching in a small academy here in Zaragoza, the North Station. A great team, and as well as doing teacher training for Cambridge University Press and Cambridge Assessment. But that's all online now. So as you can imagine, which I suppose is a good thing because we get to still reach a lot of teachers. But we would much prefer to have the especially with conferences and things like that, the in-person, it's much more easy to do the social things, I think.
Well, I say that is different for me. I've taken part in TESOL this year again, and other conferences, and I have to say, I miss going to the places and mingling with people and all that kind of energy that you get from being with people.
Right.
But I think it's been really nice being able to do it from home as well, And, because I was traveling a lot. I was spending a lot of weekends away from home, leaving on Friday, coming back on Sunday, going back to work on Monday. So I was getting a bit tired of so much traveling. So for me, in a way, it's kind of like, well, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
I think in the near future, I think we're gonna have both. Obviously, hopefully we will have face-to-face events, but I don't think I will be going to as many as I was going to before. I think I like the combination of going to places, but being home as well and being able to do it from home. I think it's great. And like you said, we can reach people that we weren't able to reach before. So it's great to have a wider audience from different places.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and speaking about audience, that's kind of why we're here today.
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
Yeah, this is the first of the sponge chats that I'm doing.
Okay.
And so thank you very much for joining me today. I got this idea mainly because I've been getting a lot of emails and from people who read my blog, and they've been asking, well, how do teachers move into teacher training? How can they move from working in language academies or institutions as teachers and move into a part where they can not only help their colleagues, but maybe to a wider audience as well? And it's something that I think is different for every trainer. I've spoken to a lot of trainers, and the journey seems to be very different for everyone. And so I suppose my objective with these chats is to speak to trainers, materials developers, a wide range of people within academic management throughout EOT, and see where they are now, how they got there, things they like about their position, and things that they really enjoy, and also some advice for teachers looking to move into those positions. And so, let's start with you. You have like a CV because it's just so long. It's, it's where do we start? I mean, so first of all, I suppose could you give us a brief rundown of who Borja is and where you've been?
Okay, I'll try to be brief. I was born in Burgos in the north of Spain. I started university there. I decided that's not what I wanted to do. I've known I wanted to be a teacher forever. Since I was a little boy, I was in the classroom in primary and I was saying, I want to be that. And that was my English teacher. I don't know why. So I gave up university in Spain and I moved to London when I was 18 and I got a job. And I started improving my English. I had a B2 level. I got my C2. I did some training courses. I loved it. I was really enjoying that. And then one of my tutors said, well, you should be doing the CELTA. I didn't know what the CELTA was. I did it in 91. And at that point, I had to make a decision whether to stay in London and, establish there or come back to Spain. And I decided to come back to Spain and I came to Seville. I was really lucky to find a job in Seville. I have to say that in July 91, I went around all the schools in Seville and I couldn't even get an interview.
Wow.
I had my C2, I had my CELTA with a B, I had some teaching experience, but I was a non-native speaker. And that was it. I couldn't even get through the door. I was lucky to get a job at International House Seville, CLIL, and I was there for a year. I really enjoyed it. And in 92, James and I went to IH Madrid because he wanted to do his CELTA course. And since I was there, I decided to do the Spanish course, the CELTA for Spanish teachers. And I loved it as well. And they offered me a job. So we decided to move to Madrid in the summer of 92. And we were working at IH Madrid for 3 years. And that's where I started getting into teacher training.
Right.
I was really lucky to meet Kate Pickering, who was the DOS of IH Madrid. And at that time, I was teaching Spanish to foreigners. And the English teachers, they were doing those seminars, teacher training. I was really, really interested. And I went to Kate and I said, look, Kate, I'd love to do one of those sessions. And she said, yeah, sure, yes, present a proposal and we'll be glad to take it into account. So my first training session was at IH Madrid in 93, probably. And I did it in front of a group of teachers. Some of the teachers were from IH Madrid and from other schools. And slowly I started doing more teacher training and eventually it became a big part of my job. In 95, after 3 years of being in Madrid, James and I came back to Seville and we started St. James. So we've been running the school for 26 years now.
Wow.
And obviously one of my big roles at St. James is to train our teachers. So I run the training courses at St. James, which is great because not only do I give them the training, but I can see how they develop throughout time. And that's for me, it's really nice to see how we've had some teachers for 10, 15 years. And when you think about how they started and where they're at now, it's really, rewarding to see how much they've grown. And obviously part of it, not all of it, but part of it is thanks to that, in-house training every month and everything we do to help the teachers grow.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yes.
I mean, you said that you did your CELTA in 91, no?
Yes.
I was born in 91, so.
Oh God, don't say that. That makes me feel great.
No, but I mean, you are extremely experienced, and I suppose there are many questions I have. Also, I mean, and then we're going off a little bit off topic now, but I think it's extremely relevant. Even today, your experience as a non-native teacher, I imagine it must have been so different then. Being a non-native teacher coming to Spain in the 90s as an English teacher, and the reception that there would have been. I mean, even now, as you know, our industry, unfortunately, is not as it should be in some aspects. Even today, after the many years and the amount of work that you know everyone's put in to try and make it so that this native non-native divide is not really there, but it's still there. Did you find any difficulty with regard to being a trainer and a non-native English speaker teacher?
Well, I think it was something natural. Like I said, I was at IH Madrid. I did a small training session. I really liked it. And I did some more. When I came to Seville in 95, Macmillan knew that I had been doing some training at IH. And let's face it, doing training at IH is good for your CV. Yeah. So Macmillan in Seville, there wasn't much training going on in Seville at that time. Right. There was very little. Obviously, there was no internet. Everything was face-to-face, and teachers didn't have many opportunities to get training. So Macmillan approached me to see if I was interested in doing teacher training for them. And of course, I say, yes, of course. So right after, probably in 1997 or 98, I started doing teacher training for Macmillan, that they had their training sessions usually in the spring, right, in different locations. And I could see that I was really enjoying that. And the teachers were happy with the training. The feedback was good. So I was doing more of that. I was getting better at it, because being a teacher trainer, it's, it requires certain skills. It's a little bit like being a teacher, but it's not quite the same. So I started to do more of that. I guess I became better at it. I enjoyed it. And eventually I found myself doing more teacher training. I went to TESOL the first time probably like 18 years ago, and I loved it. And I think I've been going to TESOL in Spain every year since then. And I've been doing training for Greta, which was the association in Granada.
Of course, yeah.
And obviously, for me, ACEIA has been very important, the association here in Andalusia. We became members of ACEIA 22 years ago. And again, a few years later, I started doing teacher training for the schools in the association. And one day I became the head of training, just like that. We had a big assembly. Teacher training was becoming like a big thing within the association. And people decided that I should be the head of training. And I was very happy to accept it. That was like 17, 18 years ago, probably. So I was very involved in the training for the association, which was a great experience, because I was able to organize small conferences when we started, very small, maybe for 120 teachers, 6 or 8 speakers, 2 or 3 rooms in a hotel. And again, that got bigger and bigger, and more people attended, and we had more speakers. And the last few years we had 700 speakers, and it's probably the biggest event in Spain. Regularly every year we've had 600, 700 participants, teachers. So that's great.
Yeah.
And again, you were talking about being a non-native speaker. For me, I have to say that makes me very proud. And, I'm trying to be humble about it, but it's like, hey, I'm proud that I've been able to be president of the association, president of ACEIA for 6 years, head of training. And I can do a lot of training for many teachers, and I'm a non-native speaker. And, the last few years, I've been talking more about this publicly, because I think it's important to send out the message that in my school, I want to have good teachers.
Yeah.
Native speakers can be great teachers, and non-native speakers can be great teachers or great teacher trainers. You know, so I just believe in being able to do the job regardless of your nationality or passport.
Yeah, I think that's a super important thing to focus on, and hopefully we have more of that in the industry. And you know, thinking about trainers that I've learned from, you know, I've had the pleasure to work with many non-native English speaker trainers, and yeah, it's been phenomenal. It's just people being qualified to do their job, and they're great at that. And there's none of this, okay, native or non-native. But okay, wow. So I mean, you've taken ACEIA from very small, and then obviously the Seville conference is ginormous. I'd say definitely, if not the biggest in Spain, one of them, and certainly one of the biggest in Europe, I imagine as well. No, it's massively international now. So you said that training was sort of the natural route, something that you really enjoyed, and you moved through there. And you spoke about some of the, like you volunteered and you said, I wanted to do this. Was there any formal routes that you took as well? Did you take on any formal courses or any, I'm not sure, any qualifications related to teacher training over the years since you've been there?
Yes, I believe in training, and myself, I've done a lot of training. I've received a lot of training because I like taking courses. I'm that kind of person that I like to sign up for a course and I enjoy it. So I've done probably like 17 years ago, I did a course at IH London, which was a course in management in ELT. And in that course, when you talk about management, you talk about working with teachers, and you start talking about training your teachers and creating a structure, systems, you know, to provide that kind of training. So that was a very interesting course that I did years ago. And for me, it was great because it really opened my eyes and it gave me a wider perspective of my job. Then a few years later, I did 2 courses at IH Barcelona in the summer. One was becoming a DOS, basically, you know, how to become a DOS and the role of the DOS. And the other one was becoming a teacher trainer. There were 2 separate courses that you could do one after the other. And of course, I did both. It was 2 weeks in Barcelona in the summer. With Scott Thornbury and lots of interesting people, and again that was really interesting because we spoke about working with teachers and how to create a training program and how to deliver a session, and again that was interesting. So obviously I've been to many conferences myself, and every time I go to a conference, I'm just looking around to see how they're doing things, how they're delivering their sessions. Why is that the speaker so successful? What are they doing? So I think I've been doing a lot of formal training, but I've also been doing some informal training. And obviously, I like to read books as well on how to become a teacher. And there are books now that I really recommend people if they want to become teacher trainers or managers, like, you know, from teacher to teacher trainer or from teacher to manager, because obviously that's the biggest step. And that's one of the biggest problems that I see in our sector, is that a good teacher, when they have a certain amount of experience, they become DOS or a manager. And it's great, but being a manager or a teacher trainer, working with teachers, is not only about teaching, it's about working with people and managing people. And that's one of the trickiest things of the job. I did another course that I did, a master's. 6 years ago, I decided to do an MBA, which is a master's in business administration. And obviously in that master's, which is obviously a longer course, you touch all the areas regarding a business, marketing and finances and strategy and human resources. And when you talk about human resources, obviously you talk also about training. And in this case, it wasn't only your teachers. One thing about the MBA is that it wasn't about teachers and the OSs, it was about companies in a more general sense. Because at that point, I was getting a little bit frustrated of always talking about students, B1, B2 teachers, and I wanted, some kind of training that gave me a different perspective. It's like, well, look, this is the business. And in any business, you have people, you have finances, and you need to look after your people. And obviously I did one of the modules of the MBA was on leadership, and that was really, really useful, because it's part of being a trainer. When you're training people, you want to inspire them. So leadership I think is part of being a teacher trainer. When I do when I plan my sessions, when I plan a course, I always think of two things for the teachers. My aim is to give them something that they can put into practice quickly and something that they can reflect on. That's one of the big differences in my career. I think when I started, my training sessions were very practical. Very, 20 things that you can do on Monday with your young learners. And that was great, very useful. And I think as I got more experience and more training myself, I can see that my sessions, I still like them to be practical, because obviously the teachers want to be able to do things in the classroom, but I try to give them something to think about, something to reflect on, because the real development will come from their reflections. If I give them the activity, great, now you can do one more activity. But if I give you something to think about, something to consider, something to reflect on, something to discuss with your partners, with the other people, well, I think the real development will happen there. Talking about development, I always make the difference between training, teacher training, and development. Because I see many people who do a lot of teacher training, but they do not develop. And to me, that's a waste of time. Taking a course is great, but for me, well, what do you do with that course? What do you do with that input? If you're not going to make a difference in your teaching, in your way of doing things, well, that training is a waste of time. What the real thing, what we're really looking for is the development, and that could come through teacher training, that could come from a discussion with your colleagues, it could come from reading a book or watching a video, it could come from many different ways. And I think that's important to take into account. Teacher training is not the only way to develop. It's one way, but there are many other ways, especially nowadays with so much information on the internet.
Exactly.
And so many videos.
No, I full-heartedly agree. I think there's, I think teachers, for example, coming to sessions, they're looking for those practical ideas, and it's great to give them those practical ideas, but we do need that element of reflection in there and relating practice to pedagogy or philosophy, and seeing how these small changes, or becoming aware of actually what we think about in our teaching, and what we think and what we actually do, and helping them come together more so, and seeing how we can make things more effective. I suppose that's one reason why I really enjoy the in-house development. So with external workshops or seminars, they're brilliant, because you get to meet many teachers and trainers and doctors from around the country, and sometimes even around the world. But really working with teachers throughout a whole year or even longer, that's where you can really see development in action. And I mean, you there at St. James for so many years, must be brilliant to see teachers, as you said, for 10 to 15 years, and their development. That must be really rewarding. Okay, so thinking about your favorite areas. Now, I remember I saw you present, I think it was in ACEIA Almeria, or maybe it was Malaga. I'm not sure. There were many. So it was one of them. And you were talking about maybe the recipe for a lesson. And it was really great to see you because you're so passionate when you're training. But speaking about your training, what would be your favorite areas? If you had to choose a number of areas where you love to raise awareness of or get teachers involved in, what would you say are your favorite areas?
Well, there have been several areas throughout my career, and I like this question because it really makes me think. 15 years ago, I was really into CLIL. Right. When CLIL became the way to do things in the English lesson, I was already playing with the idea at St. James because I was teaching kids at that time, young kids, and I was getting so tired of teaching the weather and family and rooms in the house, and I could see that those kids they were coming with their books from school, and they were doing so many interesting things like the solar system and the planets. And I started playing with the idea in my lessons. And then I found out that they had a name that was CLIL. So I became really interested in CLIL. And for a while, that was my thing. I was doing research. I was reading books. I was trying out things in my own lessons. And for a few years, like I said, I did a lot of training for teachers who were interested in CLIL. I wrote materials for Macmillan and CUP for kids' books on CLIL materials. That took a few years, and of course, I developed a CLIL program for St. James, and now we've had a CLIL program at St. James for a long time that is still in place. And then I became interested in emotional intelligence a few years ago, like 8 years ago, because I could really see when I do a lot of observations, not only at St. James, but in other places. And I love to observe teachers because hopefully they will get something out of the observation. And I always get something out of the observation. I always learn something myself. And I could see that when looking at teachers, that there are two sides to teachers. Like one is the technical side of things, like the being able to teach pronunciation, being able to do the drilling, setting up an activity. Yeah. But then you have more like what we call the soft, the skills, the personal skills, the feeling close to the students, relating to the students, creating rapport. And then I became really interested in this area because I could really see that some teachers, they had good technique and they knew what they were doing, but they weren't really connecting with the students, and those students were not very happy in the lesson, even though the teacher could have really good technique or had a lot of experience. So I started exploring emotional intelligence and basically how to apply it to a teaching situation. Because emotional intelligence it's everywhere. Obviously, it's at home, it's in the street, it's everywhere you go. But it's like, okay, how can we bring that into the lesson to make the students and the teachers, to make them feel better about what they're doing? Because that's the whole point about emotional intelligence. Is about being able to manage your emotions so that you can enjoy what you're doing and feel good about what you're doing. And if you're not feeling good about what you're doing or about what's happening, being able to manage it effectively. Right. Obviously, emotional intelligence has been really important the last few months because I think most people I don't think we've been enjoying the situation very much. And that's when emotional intelligence comes into place. Okay, how can I manage this situation so that I don't struggle and I don't suffer too much? And I can cope with this and, feel better about what's happening outside. Right. So I would say CLIL, emotional intelligence. I've been working with young learners for many, many years. And for a long time, that was one of my big areas as well, how to teach young learners. and also teenagers. For example, I haven't taught adults very much. I did for a few years a long time ago. So that hasn't been my area. Preparing students for exams, a little bit, but again, it's not my big area either.
Yeah. No, I mean, CLIL and emotional intelligence, both two really, really important areas. I would say one of my favorite areas in terms of like raising awareness of it's similar to CLIL, but it's focused on maybe task-based language learning, and I mean different in their approach to it and sort of the underlying principles. But that would be something connected there. Emotional intelligence, I think, yeah, that's really, really important. Like you said, for now, especially. And I really like what you said about, there are the technical side of things, and we often focus on that far too much, and we forget to look at the sort of the emotional or the human side of learning. And yeah, really, 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 really big areas. So development for teachers, we're often providing that. And you obviously have quite a well-established teacher training and development program in St. James. You're a regular conference speaker, both within Spain and it seems internationally as well if you're doing stuff for TESOL. But how do you develop now? How does Borja develop now? What are the things you said that obviously now we do a lot of informal, we get to observe teachers and things like that. And as you said, when I observe teachers, I always learn something new as well. But how, in terms of from now and looking to the future, how will Borja develop?
Well, I still go to conferences, and when I go to conferences, people ask me, "Oh, are you going to see sessions?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm coming here to offer a session, and I want to see sessions." And sometimes I go to see what maybe sessions, which is like in theory for newly qualified teachers, but I love to know what's going on around. So I'm still going to conferences and courses myself. I do research. A few months ago, I did some research in using technology in the classroom, creating a survey. I got in touch with lots of teachers. I got all the replies, and I, went through the answers. I put them together, and I analyzed all the information, and I drew some conclusions. So I think I like to observe. I like to take part in the environment in our sector. I'm in touch with lots of schools, and we have conversations. I'm the kind of person that I like to learn through conversation.
Right.
When you talk, when you read books about psychology, they talk about people who are more reflective, who like to reflect, and they produce their ideas more for talking to themselves in silence, and people who like to interact with people, and through that conversation they create their ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm that kind of person. I like to talk to teachers and people and have a conversation, because I can see that how through that conversation I can come up with good ideas or new ideas or new programs or ideas for sessions. Even though sometimes I love riding my bike, because every time I ride my bike, I come back home and I need to take notes in my notebook, because I come, oh yes, I'm going to do a session on that. Or when I do the session, I'm going to change that activity and I'm going to do it this way. So I love what I do. I think that's the key, and that's what helps me develop. Because I like to interact with people, read books. But like I said before, sometimes I do take proper courses, formal training like the MBA, or going to Barcelona to do a 2-week course, because I think for me that's the perfect combination. Something more informally at my own pace, but also good courses. And now the offer of courses is so wide that teachers can really find anything they want on the internet. And some of those courses are really, really good and interesting.
Yeah, I also like how you said that you did the MBA, which is not exactly language teaching focused, but I think it's great to emphasize that there are other areas that that are not specifically related to language learning that are quite relevant to our field.
Well, let me say something about that, Jim, because I think one of the biggest problems in our sector is the lack of professionalism in our schools.
Right, yeah.
And well, I would say it's not only in ELT. In Spain, the big problem we have in companies in any sector is the lack of professionalism. Why? Because 95% of the companies are very, very, very small. It's what we call PMS. And it's usually a teacher who opens a school, or a technician who opens an office, or a lawyer who opens a lawyer's office. And they're really good at what they're doing. You know, you could be a great teacher, but when it comes to opening a school and running a school, you're managing people, you have customers, you have finances, you know, you need to do some marketing, you need a strategy, you need to know about legalities. So one of the problems that we have, I think, in TEFL in general, is that many times we don't have the training that running a school requires. We have the training to be in the classroom, and we're usually really good at that. And that's where we're really, that's our passion in most cases. That's where we want to be. But then we find ourselves running a school, and we realize that, oh, this is a different game. And do I know how to play this game? And that's why one of the things that I did at ACEIA, when, like I said, we started doing teacher training a long time ago, and it started with teachers. We were offering sessions for teachers only. But when it started to get bigger, I said, no, this is not good enough, because in our schools, yeah, we do have teachers, but we have other people who require training. And we started offering training for DOSs, because director of studies need other training, because they're working with those teachers. And then we started offering sessions for directors, because as directors, we need to know about finances, we need to know about legalities, and we need the training so that we can do our job well. And then we started offering sessions for secretaries as well, because they have a huge role in our schools, because obviously customers meet the secretaries. Those are the first people customers meet. And being a secretary in a school requires, they require training in customer service, in our services. They need to know about all the different exams that we offer. So secretaries, they need training. So, and that was, I think that was really good for the association, and the members were really happy that everybody in the school could get some training for their position. So that's why I did the MBA, because I found myself, I was a teacher trainer, I was a teacher, but I was running a school. And I said, well, I need to know how to run a school professionally, because that was, as St. James got bigger, obviously when we started in 95, it was James and I, so we were very much teachers. And we were running the school, but it was really small. As it got bigger, we became more managers. And I said, well, you have two options. You learn how to become a professional manager, or you can be a manager with the training for a teacher, which is what usually happens. And you know, I think we need to see what's your position and what training do you need. And obviously, director of studies, that's what I was saying before, that teachers, when they want to get into a management position, they need to see, okay, what qualifications, what training do I need in order to do this job well? Because maybe the training that I've had so far is not good enough for this new position.
Yeah, that I wholeheartedly agree with. I suppose the old adage, you know, like I suppose we put to our industry that a great teacher doesn't necessarily make a great manager, but they can definitely develop into that. And I suppose it's very, very much context dependent as well, in the sense that that's one of the reasons I really love going to conferences, because the diversity, at least now, I can imagine when the conferences in Spain first began, they weren't as diverse as you mentioned. But now there's always the strands, you know, so you have your teacher training strands, or for newly qualified teacher strands, or the director of studies and the administration staff strands. And I think that's really, really important. Because like you said, there are many, many areas where we need to really focus on. I suppose that's one area where I would like to learn more of as well. Like in the scheme of things, I'm a very, very young teacher trainer, and I'm still very much developing. But I would also like to learn more about the administration and the management side of things. And I'm working side by side with my boss at the moment, and that's been really, really eye-opening. But it also really helps me understand, okay, where does the school actually fit in to the scheme of things? Because yes, we're an educational institution, but we're also a business, and we need to bridge them. And one of the things that I really, really enjoy about training is that effective teacher training helps the business. And one thing I really try to push, especially with when I travel around and I sit down with directors of studies, you know, is that schools need training. If we want to have, you know, successful learners, because at the end of the day, we're here for the learners, right? If we want to have successful learners, then we need to have great teachers. And yeah, sometimes there are those naturally amazing teachers, but there's always room for development. And if we can provide that development, then we have much more of a chance of providing, you know, the opportunities or the grounds for success for our learners. That would be my 2 cents on that.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So moving into teacher training, as I said, there are loads of, I get loads of questions. If you had, I don't know, 2, 3, or 4 pieces of advice for the teacher now that's been teaching for a number of years, and they're like, okay, I went to a conference, I saw Borja present, I want to do that. Or, you know, we don't have a teacher training and development program in our school. Maybe I'd like to move into that and provide that service for the school. What advice would you have for those teachers?
Okay, for me, was worked great is find something that you're interested in. I think that's, you know, yeah, we're teaching, but what are you interested in? Are you interested in teaching young learners, teenagers, exams, adults, pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary? You know, find an area that you're really interested in and you're good at. Put a session together as if you were teaching your students. And start, like, you know, planning a lesson is the same way that you plan a lesson for your students, you plan a lesson for teachers. And I think ideally it's a good idea to start small, to deliver that session to teachers in your school or in another school that you might know, so that you feel more confident, you're not so exposed. And so start delivering the session in that kind of environment, get feedback, and really take it into account. I mean, feedback for me has been essential to improve. Deliver the session again to different teachers, get feedback, and make sure that that session is a really good session. I think for me, it's like working with the students when they do a piece of writing. I don't want them to do 3 pieces of writing which are not very good. I want them to do 1 piece of writing, give them feedback. They improve that piece of writing. I give them feedback. And finally, their piece of writing is great. So I think when you start teacher training, it's that idea. Start small, something you like, and make sure that you improve it so that you say, this is a good training session. For many years, we've been exchanging sessions with other schools. And I think that, you know, I go to your school and I do a training session for your teachers. You come to my school and you do a training session for our teachers. That kind of a scheme, I think it's really good for people who want to start getting into teacher training. Like I said, it's more friendly. and usually, it's more successful. Once you've done that kind of like in-house training, I think it's important to do some reading, to maybe take a course like I did on becoming a teacher trainer, to give you clear guidelines of, how to plan a training session or how to deliver it. I think it's really important to learn about communication, how to speak in public. I think it's really important to develop those skills, because when I go to sessions and I gonna listen to a speaker, I always look at two things. So pay attention to main things: the content and the delivery. And there are two different things. Sometimes I've seen many sessions where the content was interesting, the delivery wasn't effective, it was boring, it was slow. And I've seen the opposite. I've seen speakers who were really lively, very entertaining, and people had a great time. And then I left saying, what did I get out of this session? The content wasn't relevant. There was really nothing there. So for me, it's really important to have something interesting that you want to share. And you need to be able to deliver it to the people so that they understand it, they get it, and hopefully they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And obviously communication has a big role. So it's not only the content, it's not only the lesson plan, it's not only the ideas, it's like, how are you going to get them across? What resources are you going to use? Are you going to get the students or the teachers to move around, to work in pairs, to mingle? Well, now obviously it's kind of difficult. But even though if you do it online, how are you going to interact with the teachers? So you need to start considering all those things so that you can put them into practice and develop. And once you've had some experience more in-house or with a school that maybe you can submit your proposal to ACEIA, to TESOL, to Greta, or get in touch with the publishers. But before you take that step, I think it's really important that you've done some work more like, within your own environment, just to feel like, first of all, that you enjoy it, because there are people who then find out. I know in St. James, I've got wonderful teachers who are really good teachers who do not want to do teacher training. It's like, no, please don't. I don't want to do that. I'm great teaching the students, any age, any level, but I don't want to get into teacher training. So you need to make sure that it's something that, yes, I enjoy being in front of teachers. And once you've had some experience, go and apply. There are many conferences, many events, and hopefully you will enjoy it and continue growing from there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Starting small is good. I can remember the first one or two sessions, and that feedback that you get from those first sessions is vital. Because my first sessions were, reflecting on them now, they definitely weren't as good as what I would like them to be. But that experience there was what really, really said, okay, yes, I want to do this. Seeing both the positive reactions and getting that feedback and seeing how just those small improvements can make them so much more effective. That I was like, that's what I want to do. I suppose the only other thing I would say to that is, if there are any sort of directors of studies or managers watching, is to provide opportunities for teachers to do that. Often it's sort of, teachers may have the, as you might say, las ganas, the want, the drive to do that. But if they're not presented with the opportunity or given room to move around to try something like that, then they're kind of restricted. So I would encourage directors of studies or managers to look to provide those opportunities. How do you do that in your school?
Yeah, the last few years, we were offering a training day in February, and which was like a tiny conferences, because among our teachers and managers, we have people who enjoy teacher training and who are really good teacher trainers. So I think it was the last 5 or 6 years, after Christmas, we would have this training day, and it was only St. James's teachers who were offering the sessions. And we had teachers from Seville, Cordoba, and other places in the south of Spain. And that was a great experience. And I completely agree with you. I think as a DOS, as a manager, one of my roles, probably the biggest job that I have is to create the conditions for my teachers to develop in different ways. Like I said before, people will develop through doing teacher training, people will develop through doing courses, from teaching a C2 group. But my role is like to create those opportunities so that people can find their own way to grow professionally. The way we did it at St. James, like I said, it was great. It was very rewarding. We would have like 80 or 90 teachers from other schools. And it was a great experience for our teachers to have that experience of, becoming a trainer for a day. And I know that for some of them, because they were teachers, and it was a little bit, it was a challenge to do a session in front of 15 or 20 teachers, but they really enjoyed it. And I did sessions for my teachers on how to become a teacher trainer, or how to deliver a session to teachers, because like I said before, it's slightly different than to teaching kids or teenagers or even adults. So obviously I gave them some training on how to put the session together, how to deliver the session. And then they also had the opportunity to do it in front of our teachers before they did it the day of the event. So they had like a trial session so that they could do it and get some feedback from our own teachers. And more than anything, have that feeling of, oh, I've done it once, I can do it again. And now it's going to be in front of people I've never met before, which is kind of like intimidating for many people when you don't have much experience. So I agree with you. I think as schools and director of studies, we have a big role to play in helping teachers develop to become teacher trainers, if we can give them those opportunities.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Borja, it's been absolutely amazing to hear your thoughts and perspectives. There's a wealth of knowledge in what we've spoken about today, and I would love to be able to just go through all day and pick your brain about everything that you've done. Thank you very much for being here. Like I said, this is the first of our Sponge Chats, and who knows, maybe we'll get to be again on the Sponge Chats. We'll see how they go. I'd
love to be here again, and if you want to talk some other time, just let me know and we can connect. And because, as you can see, I like talking about teaching and teacher training. And thank you very much for having me today. I think your project is very interesting, and I'm sure it's going to be very successful. And if there's anything I can do in the near future, let me know.
Awesome. Well, Borja, thank you very much. Yeah, have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. See you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.